you've got a live Facebook Q&A going on tonight as well, haven't you, Abigail?
Yeah, we have. So I have what I'll sort of do is I'll have a little chat to you about Mandy and about sort of what my background is for maybe 10, 15 minutes. So if everyone can think about any questions you've got around that, and then I'll talk about Facebook Live as well, because that should be really good. So, I mean, firstly, I can't see your hands, but maybe Matt and Katie can tell me. Can you just put your hands up if you know what Mandy is, first of all, like what we do and everything?
So yes, students, you might need to type that into the chat box so that we can see you. Just put a yes.
Yeah, they're not actually on camera, Abigail.
Oh, they're not.
That's right. It's just the moderators that you'll be able to see. Everyone else, because it's being recorded, they're not actually on screen. But they'll pop their questions in the chat box and the question box, and we can feed them back to you.
Okay, lovely. So I can see. Okay, so most people, yes, so that's good. So basically, we're a casting platform in the same way that Spotlight is. So you can come to us to find jobs for commercials, West End musicals. We get some quite big films and Netflix bits and bobs, as well as bits of telly, and then music videos, digital bits and pieces. The way we differ from Spotlight is the platform that you need to be on because your agent will use it to submit you for work. But we work slightly differently. It's more about actors being proactive themselves. So it's more about you actually finding your own work and going on there and getting that. My background, just so if you've got any questions, is I went initially to drama school, so I trained at Mountview. I then went sort of straight into doing quite commercial theatre, which probably wasn't what I think I thought I was going to be in the RSC and be like doing serious Shakespeare and things every day. But, never work out how you plan. I sort of ended up doing like really middle of the road comedy, which wasn't where I saw myself at all. But it was really fun. So I got to do lots of, they're called number one tours, where you sort of go around. It's mostly all like Oxford and Cambridge and Malvern. There's all these different theatres you stop at, where you're mostly performing to people who are over 70, lots of white hair, very kind of middle of the road sort of comedy. And then if you're lucky, it goes into the West End. So I did get to perform in some amazing theatres and in the West End and stuff, which is brilliant. With TV, I wasn't quite so lucky. I did loads of sitcom pilots where I'd be there with these like great, sort of celebs and thinking, oh wow, this is going to be my big break. And then you'd start filming it and realise that it was actually really not funny. So none of them ever made it. And then I got a recurring role in The Bill. And then The Bill got cancelled. So my early career, not probably the best. But I think, and as all this was going on, I think I started getting more and more involved in the business side of things, and I started working with directors, helping them with casting and things, and got quite interested in that side of stuff. And then I ended up setting up an agency and running that, and then finally started working for Casting Call Pro, which was what Mandy was called, and built that company up. And then now I sort of run the teams in the UK, but also in New York and LA and Toronto. So that's quite a big part of what we're doing at the moment as well, is kind of really increasing all the opportunities for actors internationally, because it is, the world is changing quite a lot. And, you do see nowadays it will be like an American company that are casting in the UK, filming in Belgium, and are kind of collecting people from all over. And because our platform not only looks after actors, but also cameramen, lighting people, everyone who works in the industry, we can kind of help facilitate that. So that's one of the big things that I'm working towards at the moment. So I'm also happy to talk about working internationally and that kind of thing, if that's something you're interested in. The other thing is, I'll talk a little bit about COVID as well and how that's impacting the business at the moment. So I think we've all been quite surprised here about how the industry is actually is keeping itself going, particularly with film and TV and commercials and digital work. There are still jobs going on the site. There's still people going ahead with filming. Theatre, even with theatre, actually, I'm seeing a lot of the panto jobs are still going up. So people are still optimistic that things are going to be back to normal in starting November, really, these shows are starting. Definitely with the film and TV, since Boris made his announcement that, he's really trying to get everyone back to work, we've actually seen jobs go up. They're nearly at the same level as we would expect at this time of year, which is really positive. Voiceover jobs have actually increased 70% since lockdown because people have shifted over to, using actors for voiceovers. So there's been a lot of opportunity there. And we're also starting to see how the industry is kind of adapting to having to think about social distancing and, making sets safe for actors and for crew. So one of the things that's become increasingly popular is actually sending cameras and green screens round to the houses where actors are self-isolating. And getting them to film themselves and have like a director on an iPad telling them what to do. It's become particularly popular in LA, actually. They've got a whole system where they have people all dressed in PPE with trolleys with like all of the, equipment on, and they'll wheel it up to the actor's house and then leave it outside, and the actor will wheel it in and set it all up and, and film the commercial and stuff, which I think is really fascinating. The other things we're starting to see on bigger sets is asking actors to quarantine for 2 weeks before starting filming, and then quarantining with the crew, essentially, for the whole time of filming. So, which I think would be a crazy experience if anyone, gets to experience that, because you'll all be staying in a hotel for like, months or something. I think it'd be really bizarre. So, so it's quite, I think, although obviously it's been a really difficult time for everyone, at the same time, it's been really interesting to see how the industry is actually responding and sort of finding ways through this. And yeah, we're certainly seeing a lot of positivity at the moment, particularly in terms of people, going ahead with productions. So I think this is definitely the time for making sure that you're prepared, you're ready, because if things are getting busier now, when the lockdown completely finishes, there is going to be an absolute surge in jobs, because everybody has been working behind the scenes, doing all the planning and the writing and everything else they can. And so as soon as they're allowed, it's just going to absolutely rocket. So there's going to be an awful lot of opportunity. So really good time to get yourself sorted out, get your profiles ready, get your headshots sorted, get your show reels and things sorted. So those are all things that I'll be talking about today. Also worth checking out, because, we went through obviously a period of being a bit quieter. It gave us a lot of more opportunity to do a lot of things that we're always wanting to do, but there's never quite enough time. So we've been doing lots of one-to-ones with casting directors and getting them in. We've been doing a lot of online events, bits and pieces. And tonight we've got a Facebook Live, which I definitely would try and tune in for. It's on at 7:00. So you just need to go to our Facebook page for that. And it's with Jeremy Zimmerman and Manuel Pioro. So you might not have heard of them. I think nobody really ever hears of what casting directors' names are, apart from Nina Gold or something. But Jeremy is a really old name in the business. And Manuel used to work for him, but also now has, for a long time, has set up on his own. But both of them are, have worked on huge blockbusters, Hellboy, Moon. If you go through Manuel's IMDb page, pretty much all of his films. If I go through Netflix sometimes and I can just see all of his films on there, he churns them out, and Jeremy does as well. And they're both hilarious and very lovely people. They're two of my favourite casting directors, I think. So, it should be they're both nuts, and they just don't care. So they just will be as honest as possible with people. So I definitely would check that out, because I think it's going to be really entertaining, and also really informative, because I don't think you'll ever get two casting directors who are more experienced but also more honest. So they'll really you'll get a lot of information from it, I expect. So check that out if you can. But yeah, maybe there's a good time just to sort of see if anyone's got any. Oh, actually, the other thing I need to say, because I will forget later, is we do give graduates 3 months free on the site. So I'll put the code in the chat box for you. So all you need to do is just put that in when you're signing up, or if you've already got a profile, that's fine. You can use that as well. So you just get 3 months free, basically, if you put that in. So it's valid for a year from today at least. So you can just use that when you're ready, and to sort of get a feel of the site and start applying for things. So then, if there are any questions, I'm happy to just about the site and how it works, or anything around that, before we get on to headshots.
Just give it a minute if anyone wants to pop it in the chat box. Okay, Jade's put the question. Hi, Abigail. Thank you for coming in. My question is, how do you make your Mandy stand out for crew? Also, can you give actors reviews on Mandy? It's up to you, Abigail, if you want to touch on this now. If some of this is going to be touched on in the presentation, we can come back to this.
Yeah, so is this somebody who's works more on the crew side then?
So, Jade, you look at, yeah.
So it's, some of this is the same, but it differs slightly. So basically, if for example, you're looking at your headshots, it's less important that you have like a really professional headshot, but it's still important that you think about how you're coming across in that shot. I was recently employing somebody who needed a crew background. And there was a lot of people that I ruled out straight away because they just had really silly pictures on their profiles. You know what I mean? Like, you're just not going to employ a girl who's doing like kind of crazy Instagram pouty face, you know? So I think, really important to think about how you're coming across in your profile of your crew. And in the same way as an actor would, you're still going to be using your profile to promote the work you've done. So I would still think about creating a reel, of creating some of the bits and pieces that you've done and stuff. You obviously are still going to make sure that you've got all your credits on there, that you're just showing all the evidence you can to show that you're going to be right for a job. So so a lot of these things will apply. A lot of the guys, are there a lot of people from the crew sort of side as well?
Yeah, so the theatre arts degree here at Middlesex is very much that you're involved in all aspects of the production. So you act, you direct, you do sound and lighting design, you're up there rigging lights and everything. So a lot of the students will have different disciplines that they specialise in, and they also have different sort of tracks in the degree itself. So there'll be actors here, but there'll also be people probably looking to get into crewing and backstage stuff as well.
Okay, and is that just in theatre, or is that on film and TV side as well?
Matt, do you want to cover the TV side?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say we've got we have film production and television production students. I don't know how many are here in this group, but they were all invited. I know I certainly have spoken to the odd student who's keen to get behind the camera and in front of the camera if the opportunity ever arises. So if we have got anybody here from other subject areas, let us know in the chat box. But also I think quite a lot of our advertising, PR and branding students are quite interested in working in media, and again, if they can get in front of the camera as well, I think some of them would be quite keen to do that.
Yeah, so I think, most actors will do other bits and pieces. Certainly, I know a lot of actors who produce. That seems to be a very popular kind of model to follow. So yeah, there does tend to be a little mix of it. Would it also be good to shout to add your Mandy to your CV? Yeah, I would do, because it's if there's more details on there. Basically, though, I would just use your Mandy profile if you're applying to something through the site. But actually, you can also, it's nice to add a link to it or something. I always kind of thinking people don't use their email signatures well enough a lot of the time. And I'd say always in your email signature, I would put a link to as much as you can. So a link to your reel, if you've got anything like that. And a good way of doing that is if you go to YouTube, if you upload something to YouTube and right click, you can get an embed code, which is a bit of HTML that you can put into your signature, and it just kind of brings up a little screen with whatever on there, which I think can be handy for anyone in the industry actually, because it just makes it easier for an employer to access your footage and access everything else. People don't like you to attach loads of documents to emails, so the more that you can make it really easy for them. The thing I particularly have a real hate of, like, anyone who sends me an email saying like, please click here to see my Vimeo, and here's my Vimeo password and all the rest of it. And, there's just no way I'm going to do that, because it's, unless they're applying maybe something specific. But for the most part, I'm never going to do that. So, you just need to make sure that you make things as easy as possible for the person you're sending information to. How much does Mandy cost after the free period? That's a good question. So it's £20 a month. It's always worth remembering that you can, if you're self-employed, you can use that as one of your expenses as well. Or if you pay for a year, it's £156. There's always offers on. So if you're a member of Equity, Bec2 for theatre, if you're working on that side, who else? If you go into lighting design or anything like that, all of the unions we basically have discounts with, which are usually 20 or 25%. So I'd always have a little look and make sure you find that. But I think most of the time, if after you've used that 3 months free, I would be really surprised if you hadn't, made some of that money back. And so, hopefully it would show you that it's worth it. And if you haven't, and there's not the kind of jobs on there, maybe I would say particularly for the sort of branding things, stuff like that, we do have those jobs on there within the film and TV world. But, there's not tons on there. So, it might be that you sort of think, okay, well, there's maybe not enough on here. Okie doke. Was that all the questions there? Not really.
Yeah, that's it for that first section, Abigail, I think, unless anyone wants to put a quick last-minute question in. But otherwise, I think we can move on.
Okie doke. So what I'll do is I'll talk about headshots for a little bit. It's a huge area. The option isn't coming up for my... Could you share my... Prezi, is that all right? I can't get it up on the sharing here because it's not on my desktop.
Yeah.
Maria is our most technical expert, I think.
I'll have another go.
If you go to tools, you don't have the desktop share button there.
Yeah, I clicked that, but it's not actually on my. It's not coming on Zoom. It will come up as one of the things that I can share, but it doesn't seem to come up.
Okay. Let me...
So I have it up on my screen if you want me to share my screen.
Oh, thank you.
Just tell me when you want me to click through, Abigail, and we'll try and do it that way.
Okay. So yeah, when I'm talking about headshots and stuff, I'll sort of try and bear in mind that some of you are talking, might be more interested in the sort of crew side as well. But this is more focused on actors. If you have got any questions, again, just, yeah.
So can you guys see this now?
Yeah, that's great. So can you jog it on a few until you get to the headshots? Oh, we're right on cover notes. Whoops. No. Sorry. It's on completely the wrong page. That's really near the end. So yeah, you have to go back right. That's beginning.
Oh, no, I must have been right at the beginning. Sorry, Abigail. Let me try and get
right. Okay, so yeah, so go on next one. And here. Okay, so headshots have like really changed dramatically, certainly from when I graduated from drama school, but they keep changing every couple of years, really. So what used to be acceptable and what was recommended is very different to today, and I think we're just going to kind of continue to see this change. The main reason for that is that how casting directors and agents and everyone is actually viewing people's headshots is very different. So it used to be you would have lovely 10x8s that were, posted to casting directors, or they would have these big spotlight books where they would kind of flick through and go through people's images. That obviously doesn't happen anymore. Now people are looking at tiny little thumbnails on a screen. And when you're looking at a tiny little thumbnail, what works in those dimensions is extremely different to what works in a big 10x8 format. So what we're seeing is, firstly, colour is what everyone wants to see now. I wouldn't have anything black and white on your profile at all. Also, the sort of style of them has really changed. So basically, it used to be that things, they're like beautiful pieces of art. My mother has my headshot framed on the wall at home because it's really they're really beautiful artwork. Now it's all about things being very natural, very real. I think my headshots were all really stylized and moody and lots of shadows and things. And whereas now the headshots are much more like these guys that I've put on here. So if you see with the girl, you can see her lovely freckles. You can see her bits of straggly hair. With the guy, you can see, his red patches, his wrinkles. These look like real people, that person is going to walk in the room. Also, a really big change is how they're cropped. So things are just cropped a lot tighter than they used to be. So you've got, the top of his head missing, which used to be a massive no-no, but that is acceptable now and can work quite well. I think if you sort of imagine that a casting director or anyone in the business is going to be looking at thousands of headshots, usually about 4 or 5 across, and what stands out in that is very different. So if it's quite close up, it will stand out and draw somebody in. Whereas if there's loads and loads of space around the heads, showing the shoulders, etc., you can get a bit lost, really. So it's something to think about for everyone, I think, actually, when you are putting together your profile. The other thing that's really important is that it looks like you. One of my friends had really fell foul of this not so long ago. She's a very interesting actor. She's brilliant, and she's kind of really quirky and northern, and she plays comedy brilliantly. And she is a very beautiful girl, but not in not in a traditional way. She never plays sexy sort of glamazons or anything. And she joined with quite a big agency, and they encouraged her to go to a specific headshot photographer to get headshots done. And I remember bringing them round and going, I just don't know about these. And basically she looked like a supermodel, and she's got a great figure, and, she's got lots of red hair, and she looks incredible, but it didn't capture her at all. And the agent was very pleased with them and wanting to go ahead. So So she basically had a year of getting seen for lovely telly roles and a couple of nice film roles, actually, all playing like the kind of real sexy, sort of roles. And that's just not her. That's not her casting. So she'd go to these auditions and they would politely listen to her and let her do her scene. And then she'd never hear about it again. And at the end of the year, she'd not booked any of those jobs. So the agent dumped her. But what I thought was the most disappointing thing was all of those jobs that she would have been amazing for, the kind of quirky girl, the sort of funny girl, all of those, she never got seen for. Luckily, she's doing very well now, and so it's all good. But there was that, definitely that year, I think, was really hard for her. So the point I guess I'm making is just be really honest with yourself and try and, choose the images that really capture you and your personality and your casting. There's no point in having images that make you look like a model if that's not what your casting is. I think it's also really useful to have on your main profile, and this would cross over to people who are wanting to work behind the scenes as well, to think about having an image that shows your warm side. I think lots of people choose an image that, is either their kind of, I don't know, moody, serious face or something, or, but it basically can make you look a bit unapproachable. And for the main one that you have on your profile, I'd just try and choose one that just shows you as somebody you would want to work with, Obviously, if you're an actor and you're applying for different roles, then you're going to select the appropriate image for that role. But just for people who are going to just be, if you're contacting them on spec or something, I would just choose a warm, nice one, because automatically they're going to be drawn to you. If you're thinking, just as a sort of side note, headshots in the US are completely different. The rules are completely different in the US. So if that's something you're sort of looking at, I would always bear that in mind, that you're probably going to have a whole different headshot for the US. They tend to be a lot more glamorous, almost the exact opposite of what I've said for UK. But they tend to be much more airbrushing going on, a lot more stylized. I don't like to say they're behind us, but it's kind of like a bit old-fashioned, their headshots in terms of there's lots of props in like US headshots and lots of character kind of things as well, which we really don't do in the UK. So that's always something to think about. Also, actually, I should say that the database that we've got, if you're looking to get a new headshot, is super useful. Basically, it's a funny noise. Basically, we've got pretty much every headshot photographer is on there. And what happens is any of our members who have a headshot with them, it will automatically link to the headshot photographer's profile. So what that means is that if you're trying to kind of decide who to go with, you can have a look at all of the images that they've taken, not just the kind of famous, beautiful people that they have on their website. But, I think you can get a much clearer idea of who you're going with. And also, most of them do discounts for Mandy members. So it's also useful just to have a check there. So definitely use that. If you can switch on 2 pages.
Abigail, sorry, there is a question from one of our students. About the profile pictures. Would you say it would be more appropriate to have a warm photo with a smile?
Yes, smiling or blue steel. That's a good question.
For the main one, I think definitely something warm and smiling. I think you want to make yourself look like somebody that they want to work with, essentially.
And Abigail, how much would you say is reasonable for your first headshot session for a new graduate? How much, is reasonable for them to be asked to pay for a session?
That's a good question. It really varies. I mean, crikey, it varies from, you can get a headshot done for 50 quid if you go to somebody who's just setting out, something like that. To go with a top headshot photographer, it can go up to like 700, 800 quid. I would say a reasonable amount would probably be around the sort of 150, 200 mark.
Yeah.
But, if that is too much of an outlay for you at the moment, I would look at some of the people who are just starting out and who are doing really great offers. I expect that headshot photographers are going to be doing a lot of offers once lockdown finishes, because they'll know that there's going to be loads of actors wanting their headshots done. So I would kind of keep a good eye out for that. I don't think necessarily the more you pay, the better you can get, by any stretch, but I just make sure that you have a look at a lot of their work. But I know there's quite a lot of really good up and coming headshot photographers who, a lot of them tend to be actors who have, got really interested in photography, and some of those images are really nice. So I'd check out the directory and have a look and see what you like. I definitely go for outside, having them done outside rather than in a studio. A lot of headshot photographers offer both, which I think can be handy, but ideally outdoor shots look so much better. They always look more natural. They look much more modern and kind of cooler, and they just sort of capture the right sort of sense. What's the word? This sort of time period, I suppose. I think they can look a bit dated when you have them in a studio, and look a bit old-fashioned. So yeah, I'll have a little chat through the gallery thing, because that might cross over with some of the questions, and then we'll go to a few more questions about headshots and stuff. Because I think people sometimes get really worried about their main headshot, but then don't consider really how they need to make their whole gallery work for them. And sorry, the formatting goes off this page. I don't know why it just does it on this page. It looks fine when I look at it. But so generally, you need to be having about 5 or 6 images on your gallery. I think if you have more than that, it starts to make you look like you're an extra or a model. And realistically, you're wanting to try and show 5 different casting types, 5 different energies, 5 different looks. And there's not that many more than that you can do, really. So I think, if you try and aim to keep to that, that's a good number. I picked this girl here because I just think she's got quite an interesting collection of images here. So if we have a look at at her in this image, so in the image where she's got a black tank top on, and it's the one which is portrait.
Yes,
that one. That's it. So she's looking really strong there. I think there's a real kind of strength and authority in the eyes. Probably not one I'd choose for her main headshot. It's a bit too blue still, but it's a really useful image, I think. Usually I get people to tell me a bit, but I think usually when I give this talk, people kind of say that the casting they give her is sort of lawyer or doctor or something like that. But I think actually, if you put her on a spaceship, she'd be like somebody quite near the top. If you put her on a council estate, she'd be, somebody you wouldn't mess with and is a bit of a leader. So I think it's really the fact that she looks high status there. You can see that kind of strength. It's nothing to do with what she's wearing or how she's done her hair. I think people get very hung up on I'll have one with me with a hoodie so I can show my urban kind of thing, and then one with my shirt and so I can show my corporate side, and then one with a bun for period casting or something. But basically in every single shot they've got exactly the same facial expression, and so it doesn't show anything at all. And I think this kind of illustrates really well that it's about your face, it's about the energy that you're giving. not about what you're wearing. I mean, a lawyer wouldn't wear a tank top, but she still gives off that power of being a lawyer or somebody important. And also for this one, I think there's something about power as well that sort of gives you a bit of age. So I think for me, she could easily play late 20s here. There is that maturity there. But when I look at the other image, so with her with the white top on, I mean, that one, she could quite easily be studying with you at Middlesex. She could maybe even be, a last year of school. She's a lot younger. I mean, if you look at the expression in her eyes, everything's so much more open. There's a real sort of innocence and a vulnerability, I think, with her there. So she would never be the leader of the gang or anything like that. She's going to be one who's trying to make everything all right, or is a bit more nervous about things. And I think it's so useful to have that range in your gallery, to have something where you're showing your highest status and something where, low status isn't quite the right word, but, in terms of power, lower status. But I think it's more about vulnerability. So I think somehow you tend to see it with acting, that people are a lot more comfortable showing their really confident, sexy sort of casting, but showing their sweeter, vulnerable side is a bit harder, but it's so useful to have that in the gallery. And also here, she looks so much younger, and you really need that as well. You need something that shows you at your upper age range and you at your lower age range. So you might at the moment only have quite a small age range to play with. As you get older, it sort of tends to widen, I think. But I know, I'll give you an example. When I was working as an agent, I had one guy he was actually in his 40s, but he thought that he looked like he was turning his 30s. And his headshots really reflected that, because he basically wanted to play the leading sort of sexy action man type person. So he had lots of headshots where he was doing Mean and Moody, Blue Steel in all of them. And he was wearing tight t-shirts in all of them. And they were all in studios, very moodily lit. But the thing is, that didn't reflect him. And if I'd sent him to an audition to play a 37-year-old, leading man, he wouldn't have got the role, because he wasn't right for that. So I got him to go and get some new headshots, and I sort of said, can you get them outside? Can you get some with a jacket? So we went and got this a sort of new set of headshots, and they were great. They looked really good, but they put him in his appropriate casting bracket. So in those, he basically, you could see his sort of grey hair coming in. The jacket shows his, is more age appropriate. And he never stopped working. I think the first day that I put those headshots out, he got cast as a dad in a commercial that he ended up making money off that for years. He got a episode in Grantchester playing a doctor. He just kept on coming all the jobs. He was out all the time. So I think, it makes such a difference, and you just want to make sure that you're helping your agent as much as possible, so that they've got the material and the evidence to put you forward for a range of roles. So, yeah.
Abigail, we had a question from Leonor about wearing makeup in your photo shoot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, obviously, you want to make yourself look the best as possible, but you don't want to be looking like you're wearing. I wouldn't wear a heavy lipstick or heavy eye makeup, for example. You wear makeup, but just make it natural makeup. However, as a slight aside to that, I can't see any of you, but if any of you are people who you've got a really strong look where you wear a lot of eye makeup, or, you have that, then I think it's useful to have one image where you're showing that sort of style. With this girl that I picked for the gallery, she actually in real life was, and you can't actually see it very well in this image, but she had loads of facial piercings, and you know, she had a very cool style about her. She used to wear like really crazy hair extensions and stuff. So it was useful to have her showing one image of that, because there's going to be a lot of commercials, music videos, TV that maybe want somebody who's got a strong image already. So I think it's good to have, if that fits you, then it's good to have one like that. But then obviously in all her other images, she's a lot more blank slate. You know, we could put her as lawyer or teacher or anything. So you don't want to limit yourself by in every shot you being there with like nose ring and loads of black eye makeup or something, because then you're just really limiting the kind of roles you can be seen for. But yeah, maybe just have one.
Leonore said, yes, that's me. So I guess she's got a strong, bold look that I look forward to seeing.
And, you know, and a lot, because obviously I think for a lot of directors as well, you know, they don't want to have to imagine how somebody might look like that. They want to sort of just see that, you know, if that's what they're looking for from a role, they want to see it straight away. So yeah, so it's useful to have that. And I think with the growth of social media at the moment, your branding, as it were, and your kind of style is something that's being a lot more sought after by companies and production companies.
Brilliant. We also had another question about whether the shots should be from one photo shoot. Looking at those pictures, it looks like they're from about 3 different shoots.
Potentially, I would say though, because when you're in the shoot, I used to go with literally a suitcase full of different clothes. I would go with my hair curly, and I would take my straighteners and like straighten it. So you go with like as many different kind of looks and things, and you know, different coats and all sorts of stuff. So you can get quite a lot of different looks out of one photo shoot. I'd say there's probably 2 there. She probably went outside and did some, and then the other 2 in the studio, but just changing tops. The other one, the Instagram style one, is a separate one. That would have been a separate modelling shoot, I would think. But yeah, as you move on in your career, you probably you'll have like some of your favourites from an earlier headshot shoot, and then you'll sort of update them as you go along. But I think it's fine. Obviously, it's just when you're starting out, people know that you're not going to have had loads of headshot shoots, so I think it's fine for them all to be from one. Another thing to say, actually, at the moment, obviously, I don't think you'll be able to book any headshot shoots. You can get away at the moment, certainly, with having a professional looking headshot. So what I would do if you haven't got one at the moment is, you know, have a look at headshots, see the kind of style. There's, you know, they tend to be in front of a brick wall, in front of railings, in front of like a bush or something. There's like real patterns of, you know, of headshots. Have a look at some of them. You know, hopefully if you're isolating with somebody or you've got someone, you know, go and have a go at sort of taking some different ones. But I think we're certainly being more lenient at Mandy. We usually, we do always approve every headshot. But at the moment, I've given them a bit of a steer to say, look, you know, people are not going to be able to get any new ones. So let's just give them a little bit of leeway at the moment. So make it as professional looking. But, you know, a selfie or a holiday shot is not going to work, obviously. And it's still got to be quite crisp. But, yeah, you can get away with that at the moment.
Okay. Shall I move on up again? Shall I move on with the presentation?
Is there some other questions here?
Yeah, we do have some other questions. What do you think about dyed hair if someone has lots of colours in their hair?
That's a good question. You know, I would always say, like, do whatever you want. Like, you know, you shouldn't try and always be thinking about how can I get ahead as an actor. You know, it's what you want to do with your hair or your body or whatever. But I know I loved dyeing my hair when I was younger, and I used to often go from like sort of peroxide to really dark and back and all the time. It caused me quite a few problems because obviously whenever you change your hair dramatically to the point where it's going to change your casting, so a big colour change or length or a fringe in or whatever it is, then you need to get new headshots because that's changed your casting straight away. And people do not like it if you turn up for an audition and you've just had your hair completely changed. I mean, less so for theatre because I did it once for theatre and I mean, God, I wish I hadn't, because then they ended up dyeing and cutting my hair in this awful 80s style that took me years to grow out. So, that was not the best. But generally, I remember going to auditions where it would have been for a brunette, but I hadn't changed my headshots yet, and I was blonde, and I'd walk in and be like the only blonde person there, and it's like, well, clearly I'm just wasting everyone's time, aren't I? So just be aware of that. You'll have to get more headshots if you dye it frequently, and also obviously if you have really obviously dyed hair, it's problematic for doing period stuff because that rules you out of doing that. If you're going for a lead role in a period drama, then obviously they'll sort your hair out for you. But if you're going for a small role, then they're unlikely to want to pay to do that. I mean, with tattoos, similarly, I would always say go ahead and get a tattoo if you want to get a tattoo. For some castings that will work in your favour, and for some it won't. But I remember I did one period theatre piece where one of the leading guys had like quite a big sleeve of tattoos, and I remember like on tour and in the West End, he would have to go in early, like an hour and a half or something earlier than everyone else, and sit there while the makeup lady covered his tattoo. So that's just what the reality might end up being. Yeah. I think that's it. Hopefully that's answered the question. Please. Yeah.
Abigail, I'm just letting you know it's 10 to 2. I believe you had a meeting you needed to get to. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a little bit later now, but
Okay.
I'll try and wind up.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to keep going as long as you're happy. But yeah, I just didn't want you being late for anything else.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've sort of moved it to 1:30, but yeah. There's a flies coming in. I thought the window's open. Okay, where was I? Is there any other questions on that?
We've had a question again about where to present the gallery of photos.
Yeah, so the gallery of photos, that would be on your Mandy profile. So you pick the images and put them in there. I mean, with Spotlight, for example, you do the same and select your images in the same way. I suppose the other thing to think about is I put body shot here, but it could be like a sort of mid shot. But it's extremely hard to tell from people's faces what their physique is going to be like. And for a lot of roles, that is important. So it is useful to have something that's actually showing a bit more of your physique. Whether that could be a production shot. It could be when you're having your headshots done. You say, "Oh, have you lost me?"
I lost you there. I don't know. Got you back again though. Hello again.
So I was just saying about getting mid shots. You can use production shots for that, or you could go to when you're getting your headshots done, just ask if you can have some longer ones done as well. Those work. And the other thing on that is having a shot that shows your teeth. Particularly in the US, Brits are not known for having particularly good teeth. It's kind of a real thing. And if you're wanting to do commercials, you're going to need something that shows your teeth. But I'm not saying go out and get veneers or anything. Please don't do that. But the other thing, though, I think is when people smile and show their teeth, it just shows such a different different expression. I think people look so different when they really like smile, and I think people are always very nervous of it and don't like it, seeing themselves like that. But I think it can be lovely. You know, and I think she looks really sweet here, and she's got a great gap between her teeth, which is really popular at the moment. So really works in her favour. But don't be scared about doing that. You know, have a kind of go when you're doing a headshot session or whatever, and so you can get some of those in as well. Sorry, yeah, I have warbled on for a long time, haven't I? Maybe we'll try and I'll quickly do the bit on show reels, and then we'll go to final questions. So yeah, show reels. I think it's so important now because your headshots can show obviously quite a lot about how you look and your style and your energy and things, but you can't really capture somebody in terms of like how they move, how they speak, you know, their real sort of casting type. You just can't capture that unless you can see some footage. So if you know, it's really hard to get yourself seen for anything unless you've got some footage, and then it becomes hard to get some footage, you know, because you haven't got anything to get that work up with. So what I'd say at the moment is a good way around this is thinking about self-tapes. So you can easily do some self-tapes from home. So basically just doing a scene straight to your laptop, somebody behind the laptop who's reading in some lines. And a lot of directors really actually like seeing self-tapes because there's no editing, there's no makeup, you know, there's no set or anything. It's just you. And it's really kind of raw. And so I would use this time to just kind of play around with that as well and sort of, you know, get some footage, because people are going to be understanding that, you know, we're going to come out of this and people aren't going to have been able to get footage, you know, particularly if you're just graduating. So I think that's a nice way around it. But what you want to aim for eventually is having sort of 3 scenes. Each one of those I try and keep to about a minute. And each of them should be contrasting. So to give you an example, one friend I've got who she works a lot, you know, she's in everything, but she's never a name that you'd know. She's a proper jobbing actress, you know, and she's like the northerner that you see in everything. So she's got 3 scenes. One is her playing a lawyer for a BBC drama where she's being like really forceful and stuff. And then she's got another scene where she's in Doctors playing like a working class woman who's just lost her baby and it's really traumatic. And then she's got some, she does quite a bit of comedy stuff. So she's got a scene where she's playing like this crazy cleaning lady. So she's got a really good contrast of scenes there, and those work so well for her. She's used that same show reel for a long time because she hasn't massively changed, and yeah, it gets her a lot of work. So yeah, getting that contrast is good. Things have really changed now. You don't have to get a lovely packaged show reel with you know, music and all the rest of it now. You can just have 3 separate scenes on your profile. Works just as well, I think. Okay, so what? Let's just go to questions quickly, or I will go miles over. Okay, once you present it. Oh. Can we put footage where we speak in a different language, or should we put it? That's a good question. So yeah, I think eventually, what you would, if you're an internet, you know, if English is your an additional language for you, in the end, you'd probably want to have 2. You'd want to separate out, so you'd have like a sort of UK show reel and an international one. Where you had like you speaking English with an accent, maybe not with an accent, etc., and then one of you speaking in your natural accent. But in answer, yes, it's really useful to seeing something where you're talking in your native accent. A small scene, and I wouldn't put it first. I'd probably put it last, because obviously most of the people in the UK are going to be wanting to see you speaking English. but it can be really handy, I think. Is there any key things we should know about voice reels? So with voice reels, I think generally with voice clips, they can be really useful. If you're a singer, I would definitely use, there's a bit on it, yeah. If you're a singer, I would definitely think about using, recording some different styles of song and having those on there. Generally, if you're really good with accents, I think it could be super helpful to have some of that on there as evidence. A professional voiceover is a slightly different thing. On a professional voiceover, you'll have commercials, you're doing technical kind of stuff. They're very expensive. I would probably not invest loads of money until you've got a voiceover agent or something. But if there are people who've got English as an additional language, it's quite lucrative for you to go down the voiceover route. I know one Norwegian actress who, and she's not Norwegian, Belgian, but she speaks Flemish. And I think she must be like the only actor in London who speaks Flemish. She works all the time doing like loads of voiceover stuff where she has to translate into Flemish and do that. So, it's nice little income that she has coming in. If you are an international actor, I think there's a lot of work out there for you in terms of voiceovers and stuff.
I think there is a question we missed earlier about, if you do other forms of art like dance, could you use Instagram as your portfolio?
It depends what you're going for, I suppose. With dance and a proper profile, it's always useful to have footage on there, but it's nice when it's recorded in the studio. It doesn't work when it's like a show that you did and you're like a tiny person on stage and you can't really work out what's going on. That doesn't work at all, I don't think. Using your Instagram page as your profile, it doesn't seem very professional to me, if I'm honest. There is a lot of casting and stuff that goes on Instagram, so it's important to keep your Instagram as a good reflection of you and your talent. But yeah, I wouldn't use that as your profile. But should you put your Instagram on your CV then? Yeah, I would put a link to your Instagram on your CV, and I would put a link on your profile. Generally with social media, it's so important now that you really keep an eye on how you're presenting yourself. It's an instant way that people no one hardly ever asks for references anymore. They just look at your social media. And it can be it's very revealing. Oh, time's running out. I better say goodbye. Okay, is there any other important questions that came up? Also with text, you need rights to use them on a voice reel. I've never heard of somebody anyone getting prosecuted over that. I've never heard of that. But it is a good point. And there is, if you Google it, you can, there are databases of text that you can use where it's okay to use them without permission. I've never heard of anyone being prosecuted by it. But yeah, just to be safe, I would do that.
And what about Abigail, would it be fine for them to include things from their productions here at Middlesex if they've done a great monologue they're really happy with in a production here under the lights? Would that be appropriate for them to include in a show reel?
It's so difficult. I think it's a case by case sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the production quality. Definitely if there's other people on it, I would say no.
Yeah.
Monologue, I think always duologues or scenes are always going to be better.
Okay.
Acting is about reacting and things, and I think sometimes monologues don't work so well. But in these crazy times, having if it's a strong monologue and you're like, yeah, I really like it and I think this works, then use it. But as you go through your career, you'll probably take that out and put other things in as they come along. Would I be able to see the rest of your Prezi? Yeah, you can. Yeah, I don't mind if you want to share that. That's fine.
Great.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Those are all really good questions.
Thank you. It's been wonderful having you. I mean, everything's been really useful. Yeah, I mean, if you have got any other slides you wanted to share, you know, I'm happy to stick around, or we could arrange another session for another day if you prefer, or we could just share the presentation. So I mean,
whatever would work with you guys. I don't, you know. So I mean, I'm happy to come back if you like, but maybe I don't know. Those are the main things that are really important, I suppose.
Oh, wonderful.
Go over cover notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have a read and see what you think, I suppose.
For the attendees that are here, if anybody would like to receive this whole presentation, then if Abigail's happy for us to share, if you will pop your email, please, in the chat box, and then we'll stay on and we will we'll collate those emails and we'll make sure those will get sent out to you. So anyone who wants the presentation, pop your Middlesex email in the chat box, please, and I'll make sure those are sent out. There was one last thing, Abigail. They said, last question, I promise. If you don't have material for a show reel, what would you recommend doing? So I saw in your presentation you did say looking for student films that they could get involved with.
Yeah, student films are a godsend. I mean, obviously they're not going to be going on at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, use Mandy. All of the students use us, and they pay. So you know, I'd have a look. The other thing there is recording some self tapes. So I'd you can go to BBC Writers Room. They have really good scripts in there. Any scripts you've worked on already. If you're a bit of a writer, you could write your own script. And just record some yourself, start practicing doing them, see what works. And if you do one and you think, oh, I quite like that, you know, that's quite good, then I think go with your instincts and go, okay, yeah, I like that. I'm gonna use that. The things that work best on self-tapes are supernatural and quite a kind of fast pace. So you just like having a chat with your friends. You know, a little scene that you've written where you're just chatting about what was on telly the night before and having a bit of a laugh about it or something. That actually works a lot better than some kind of really dramatic scene, you know. Because, yeah, I think basically people just want to see you being as close to you, really, as really kind of natural and realistic. So, yeah, have a play around, do some stuff like that. And, yeah, if anything works out, use that. And then as you go on, you can replace it with student films, and then hopefully, you know, you get some bigger stuff and you can replace it with that. And it will keep sort of evolving as you go on.
Great, thank you so much.
If anybody's looking for to showcase their acting talents, I know there's a few things going on at the minute where they're looking for performers. I mean, there was Lockdown Larry was the kids TV channel that's being run by one of the members of the television production team. So yeah, students can get involved in that as well. And we've got our blog on mdxworks.com. We've got articles there to help people with their online branding and things like that. So if you need any tips there, and I'm sure if anybody needs any help, like editing together their show reel or anything, we can put you in touch with students who have those skills. So, but I see we've got a good mix of people. We had film students as well as theatre arts and media and advertising and PR students that have been listening. So it's been wonderful.
Aww.
Thank you so much, Abigail. So yeah, I'll be definitely attending Facebook Live this afternoon. So for any students that miss it, I'll feedback to them as well. So I'm really looking forward to that too.
Yeah, fingers crossed we don't have a technical. The only thing that will go wrong is like a big technical thing.
Yeah.
Luckily,
everyone understands that at the minute. So.
God, yeah, that's always my fear. But,
yeah.
I'm not hosting it, luckily. My colleague's hosting it. So,
that would be great.
Well, have a lovely time. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.